Hello, my name is Richard Tuning, and I'm the 4-H Center Director at Camp Jekyll. Welcome to another edition of From the Mountains to the Sea. As we continue this great video series, we wanted to bring you back to Jekyll Island, here to St. Andrews Beach on this beautiful January morning to talk about hidden treasures of Jekyll Island. Visitors that have been to Jekyll Island and have been to Camp Jekyll know that January and February holds a special opportunity for folks to do kind of a neat hide and seek adventure here on the island, looking for island treasures. Right here beside us, we have a beautiful island treasure that was found on a previous year to share with you. These island treasures are hand-blown glass balls that are hidden around the island each day during the months of January and February by the Jekyll Island Authority. They put out a total of 250 of these beautiful glass balls, and if you happen to come across it and lucky enough to find one, it's yours to keep. Now, this year, they're doing something a little different where they're actually putting out a plastic facsimile of this ball, very much the same size, and inside of it is a card that tells you what you found and how you can actually exchange it for one of these beautiful glass balls. That way you don't have to put the real ones out on the island. If you wanted to see what they look like, you actually take that plastic ball to the Jekyll Island Welcome Center and exchange it for the real thing. This has a neat connection to a little bit of maritime history. So before the invention of plastics and styrofoam and other artificial materials, fishermen used to use glass balls to help orient their nets correctly in the water. And over time, as their nets deteriorated, these glass balls would break free and they would drift on ocean currents, sometimes for quite a while and many miles before washing again up on the beach. And beachcombers, if they were lucky enough to find one of those glass balls, had a neat little bit of nautical history in their hands. And so the Island Authority, Jekyll Island Authority kind of piggybacks on this and makes this a great adventure for folks coming to visit Jekyll Island. They can find their own glass balls. So if you're on Jekyll during the months of January and February, and a lot of times our students, every year we've been so fortunate, we've always had either a student or a teacher find one of these during their environmental education field studies on the island. It's really great fun. So for the rest of this series, what we wanted to kind of talk about were other hidden treasures here on Jekyll Island. And Jekyll Island is great. Beautiful beaches, wonderful maritime forest trails, the salt marsh, beautiful to focus on. We wanted to talk about a little bit of history that's found just a short distance from Camp Jekyll here at the St. Andrews picnic area. So there's two parts that we wanted to kind of focus on here at St. Andrews. One is a little bit of military history with some Spanish-American gun carriages that are located inside the maritime forest. Most people don't know about them or how to find them, but it really is a neat little bit of history. And also, we're going to focus on the slave ship Wanderer, which is a tragic bit of American history, but it is important to remember it was the last importation of enslaved peoples here to the Americas. So we're also going to check out a wonderful walking memorial trail to the Wanderer back at the St. Andrews picnic area parking lot. So join us for this little adventure, and we'll start off in just a moment on our trail to the gun carriages. There are two ways to approach the gun carriages. Both requires a sense of adventure. The one way we are now is actually from the beach, here from the St. Andrews picnic area. And what you want to do is you want to walk down the beach a little ways to get to this clump of trees, the first significant tree you come to, and there's a path that comes right off from behind the beach. The second way you can get there is actually from the St. Andrews neighborhood. That path is a little shorter and a little bit easier, but we wanted to walk you down this trail because it's such a beautiful maritime forest. We thought you'd enjoy the time lapse as we walk that way. It takes maybe about 5 minutes to walk. So let's go. We've made it to the gun emplacement. You'll notice behind me, all that's left of this installation are the rusty iron carriages that used to be the mounts for the cannons on top. So the cannons that would have been on top would have been a 10-inch muzzle-loading Rodman artillery piece, which were removed shortly after the conflict. So we're talking about the Spanish-American War. So this was the end of the 19th century, around 1898. This was a very short-lived conflict, only about 10 weeks long, but there was a strong concern about protecting the coastlines during this time, because this was following the Civil War. And so they added these gun emplacements up and down the coastlines, and they wanted to put this emplacement here to protect the port of Brunswick. So what this cannon would have done is that they would have fired a projectile over half a mile over St. Andrews Sound, and they would have had another battery on the north end of Cumberland Island that would have had the sound covered from two different sides. Now you'll notice that we don't see St. Andrews Sound. In fact, we don't have any view of the water. All we see are trees and vegetation. That's because over the last 100 years, through the process of deposition and accretion, the south end of Jekyll has grown, so much so with sand being deposited that there's now trees and shrubs blocking our view. But it's about 800 to 1,000 feet to the water from here. Now, in addition to the gun emplacement here, and there are two carriages, there also would have been a powder magazine, and also some kind of structure for housing the soldiers that would have manned this installation. Now, there's belief that there actually might have been one, if not two more of these emplacements on the island, but they've actually been lost to history. Potentially the one on the north end could have actually been lost to erosion. Now, the conflict was very short-lived. It was only 10 weeks. You might remember the phrase, or remember the Maine, or Teddy Roosevelt, the charge up San Juan Hill. So after the conflict ended, the barrels of the cannons were actually removed, but the carriages were left here to rust in place. So really a fascinating place to discover, and it requires a little sense of adventure, maybe some bug spray, and be sure to check for ticks afterwards. I will make a note that you do want to be careful and not try to follow the trail on Google Maps. That sends you a little bit, that trail has been kind of abandoned, so the path we showed you was a little bit easier way to get here. Also, there's some remnants of some pink blazes on a few of the trees that can help kind of reassure you're on the right path. Now, we did mention there was another way to gain access to this location, and that's another trail over here that comes from the St. Andrews neighborhood, which is a little bit closer, and that's certainly another way you can access the spot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick back up again our adventure at the St. Andrews picnic area at the beginning of the Wanderer Trail. Our next stop on our St. Andrews adventure is coming here to the Wanderer Memory Trail. So we're right here in the center of the St. Andrews picnic area, and this really powerful memory walk has a series of exhibits that highlight the enslaved peoples that were brought to the U.S., and specifically those that were brought over 160 years ago. The year was 1858. Now, at this time, the importation of slaves was outlawed, but slavery was still legal here in the U.S. The sailing vessel Wanderer was a sailing yacht that was converted to smuggle in these enslaved peoples, and when they came here, they were actually disembarked right here in the south end of Jekyll Island. And to commemorate this event and to honor the story and to hear the voices of those peoples, the Jekyll Authority, in partnership with others, have actually installed this wonderful walking trail that has a series of interactive exhibits that kind of talk about the journey, specifically through the eyes of Umala. Umala was one of the enslaved young persons on this vessel, and he actually survived through slavery, through the Civil War, and actually made it to emancipation. He actually was able to recount his memories of that journey. And it's truly fascinating on this trail. You'll encounter different things such as a recreation of his hut over in Africa, where he would have lived, a dugout canoe, conditions on board the slave vessel, honoring the sights and sounds of those people, how their story was shared, and others as well. It really is a fascinating walk. It's really worth your time, and it's really easily accessible. Thank you for joining us on this edition of From the Mountains to the Sea. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about the hidden treasures here on Jekyll Island, from the island treasure glass balls to the Spanish-American gun emplacement to the Wanderer Trail. There's a real immense amount of history and things to learn here on Jekyll Island. We enjoy bringing our students down from Camp Jekyll to St. Andrews. We've come down here before to go sailing before. We had an orienteering course up here before, and sometimes we just come down just to learn about the history that we've shared with you. If you'd like to learn more about these items, we're going to include in the description below the links to the Jekyll Island Authority's web pages on the island treasures, the gun emplacements, and the Wanderer Trail. We wish you luck on your adventures exploring Jekyll Island. We also hear that somewhere here in St. Andrews there's also a rope swing, which has a really neat bit of history as well. So good luck if you're able to find that. We hope to see you again soon.